It's smart journalism. Oh, it's my last year in the club. If you're going to put a video out, if you're Sky Sports, if you've just got an exclusive interview, if you want to say annoy the club a little bit, if you want to annoy some of the fans a little bit, if you want to ruffle a few feathers, make people think, hey, Mo Salah said, it's my last year in the club. What a conclusive thing to say as a comment that's completely taken out of context. Then out of context comments and quotes work. They get clicks, guys. But the context in which Mo Salah said it was actually this, and this is why I think that's actually quite important. He said, coming back here. He was speaking about the beginning of the season, how he begins to set out goals, aims, and ideas that he wants to achieve during the time that he's playing for Liverpool, and how he can achieve those things. He said, coming back here, the context was that it was my last year in the club. That was where his head was at. That was where the mindset was. He hadn't had a contract offer, allegedly, or hadn't had a contract offer that he wanted to accept at that point. And Mo was returning to Liverpool to achieve things, in his mind, in a last dance type scenario. That's a very realistic thing to say. But actually, when you look at his face, when you look at the context around all of this, it actually kind of gives me a little bit of, well, I guess hope that he is going to sign a contract, because he says it in quite a matter-of-fact way. He says it as if, well, not as if things have progressed, but just, well, you know, that's kind of a matter of fact now. That was the way that I was returning to the club. Someone who knows they're dropping quite a big piece of information maybe doesn't just drop it in such a matter-of-fact way. Or, if you want to flip it, someone who does know that this is quite a big piece of information, but they've come to terms with it, does just drop that in an interview. Of course, it could go either way, but boy, does it get Sky Sports a lot of clicks. And boy, will some other people trade off that. But I want to put your minds at rest. There have been a lot of comments over the last few days, especially around the Trent Alexander-Arnold video. A lot of Madrid fans coming along to rub our noses in it. A lot of people coming around to say, hey, Trent should be allowed to leave. What are you Liverpool fans making all this noise for? But also a lot of people saying, well, you know, why didn't you offer a contract sooner? Why are Trent and Mo and Virgil all in the last year of their contract? It is a mess. But it's not a mess made by the current people heading up Liverpool's transfer team and contract negotiations. That now is, well, Michael Edwards and Richard. Richard, you're doing a great job so far. I think so anyway, in managing all of this. And I think when I look at the interview, when I look at what Mo was saying, in context, it's actually a very calm, normal thing to say. This is a man who has very high aspirations. This is a guy who seemingly tries to keep his life as simple as possible, who tries to keep it one foot in front of the other, who tries to keep momentum going, all these kind of things, to multiply whatever it is that he's got going on. He is currently, if not the best player in the world, one of the top 3 players in Europe, if not the world. And it makes no sense for him to give an interview in which, in such a kind of, I don't know, blasé way, he drops the information that, yeah, this is my last year in the club. By the way, it wouldn't have been brand new information at that point, but it would have been something that felt bigger than the comment that he just made. And I think there is a general feeling at the moment, especially after the comments the other day from the Athletic guys, that Mo Salah and Virgil van Dijk will both re-sign a contract. Now, that can actually go both ways. And actually, David Ornstein's piece of information didn't really give me much relief. Because, well, first of all, very often, and all of our speculation around Trent is equally applicable to Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah. Mo Salah, of course, along with Virgil van Dijk, is also subject to offers from different clubs. But with all of that, we know that clubs, players, everyone is leaking something to try to get a bit of, traction in the media, to get their story ahead of everyone else. If you're the first one to drop the punch, if you're the first one to land that piece of information, then you're the ones who get to set the narrative. Whatever runs first tends to be the thing that has made itself around the world before truth has even got its pants on. And that is important in football, because you can turn fan bases for or against you in this period. I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. But I also think on top of that, if you really care about the club, you wouldn't want to play a will they, won't they type scenario with the fans. You, of course, would want to play that with FSG, a team that you have to negotiate with. You, of course, would want to play that with anyone who you don't necessarily have some emotional investment in, or you don't want to create a relationship which you can't repair in some fashion. It's very difficult to repair your relationship with a large group of people that you don't have much contact with. It's much easier to return to a group of people, say Liverpool, the people you're negotiating with, and say, look, we're in negotiations. I needed you to do what I wanted. You needed me to do what you wanted. And there was a bit of give and take in that. Like no love is lost in love and war. No, something about love and war. Comments about love and war, they're very similar is what they're saying. They're drawing a comparison between the two. It's been a long day. May have been a long day for Mo at this point. I don't think it was. It looks post-training. It's in that lovely room that everyone does their interviews in. I've done some interviews in that room myself. The journalist looks pretty laid back about the comment at the time. Weirdly, doesn't even really follow up on it. And that shows that I think there is more information going on behind the scenes than we might be privy to. If you were a journalist who had just heard the phrase, my last season at Liverpool, and you believed it, and you thought, you know what, this is a comment worth digging down on, you would probably dig down on it. And the journalist actually just lets it go. He actually just goes, yeah, okay, cool, we'll just, yeah, next. Are you keeping like a diary or anything? Like it's kind of like, what is it that you're focusing on at the start of the season type scenario? That's a weird way to approach a big piece of information that a player just dropped. Unless you know more. And you're being told by certain people, don't approach this kind of thing. The media officers in the room with them, they're like, hey, look, we don't want to fray any more ends on the string. Don't make this a messy, awkward scenario. Just give us a good interview. We'll give you the best player. We'll give you the star guy, your Sky. You walk out of here with a good interview. Cheeky, Mo. Mo knows that though. And of course, there are many different ways that this will be interpreted. There are many people who won't watch the interview. There are many people who will quote it in articles. Give Me Sport will write 10 different articles on this. One Football will do at least 5 articles in which they quote any of these things. And of course, other people like me will try to quash that terrible information, try to stop people from feeling bad about it. Of course, I'll go on about the fact that David Ornstein is confident that both of those other players would sign that. First of all, I have a relative confidence in David Ornstein. I think he's a pretty good source. I also think it would be weird for him to say something like that and kind of hang his journalistic hat on that. But at the same time, clubs sometimes want to put pressure on players. They want the public to think, hey, they are going to sign because David Ornstein said it. But at the same time, it came out just before the piece of information that came out about Trent Alexander-Arnold, somewhat softening the blow of what's going on with Trent. Now, if it was just one of the 3, then the full focus would be on just that one. But the fact that the risk is spread so thinly between so many players actually kind of helps Liverpool, because on multiple different fronts now, the expectation is not that one of them will re-sign, which would be 100% of the story if it was just one guy. The expectation is actually that 2/3 is actually pretty good as a percentage. Whereas actually the expectation before would have been, well, you retain Virgil van Dijk, the best centre-back in the world, at least on his day. You retain Mo Salah, the most informed player in the world. And you retain Trent Alexander-Arnold, probably the best distributive right-back in the world. But now that's not the expectation. And I think part of that is also softened by the fact that Liverpool historically have lost a couple of players and relatively continued on a straight path forward. In fact, the biggest loss in Liverpool's team has been Sadio Mane. Sadio Mane felt relatively irreplaceable in terms of that front line for quite some time. And Mo Salah took on a lot of that, the weight of that on his back for quite a while. Luis Diaz came in, the goal scoring wasn't quite the same. The attack didn't quite feel as edgy as it did before. It didn't quite feel as scary to the opposition. And Liverpool weren't really able to continue the same way. That showed that individual brilliance within Klopp's system was certainly a big part of it. Giving them the space and the latitude to do that was important. But at the same time, you need to have those players around them in order to enable them to do that. If Liverpool next summer were to lose Mo Salah and Trent Alexander-Arnold in the same summer, that would really be a devastating blow to Liverpool. Really, you are just taking out not a whole personnel side, not only that, but you're also taking out a whole tactic. And then you really begin to question, what is it that we actually have here? What is it that we what is it that we're able to actually achieve out on the field? Because you're losing basically two of the biggest leaders in the team, two people who drive the team forward. One guy for assists, one guy for goals and assists, and a big part of why defenses drift over to that side. If you bring a young guy in, yes, they could have a Mo Salah season. Yes, they could be a prolific all-time goal scorer at Liverpool, one of the top 10. But there's still a chance that they won't be Mo Salah. There's still a chance that they will not be backed up by someone that sucks defenders towards them. Conor Bradley, as active as he is, may not suck people as close towards him because, well, why would you need to go close to someone who's going to drive at you anyway? The dynamic of Trent and Mo is something that's been worked up over a number of seasons, and you cannot just work that up. Again, as good as any coach is, like as good as Slot is as a coach, he is still relying on the fact that there is an understanding and a symmetry and a symbiosis between those two to be able to keep things going. I think that's pretty reasonable, by the way. I think, that's pretty reasonable that this would just continue in this way. But it won't. That is going to be upset in some capacity. And so the weird thing is now, everyone can prey on that and try to derail Liverpool's season. Slot will be annoyed by it because this is a situation that he is walking into that he can't really control. He'll be annoyed by it, but I doubt that there is much that he can actually do about it, so I doubt that there is much that he'll actually say about it. In fact, he's actually remained relatively uncommitted to most of these comments in the media because actually none of this mess is his in the first place. None of this issue that is created there is even his. Salah obviously is a bit annoyed by it, but actually you can see, if anything, Mo is trying to get another contract. I mean, if this really is your last season, then why are you annoyed that Liverpool haven't offered you a new contract? It'd be a weird time to just come out and say, I haven't been offered a new contract if you weren't looking for a new contract at least. Anyway. The same goes for Virg. I think Virg is relatively quiet because he realises there's a legacy to be had here at Liverpool. And Trent is quiet because he realised there's a legacy to be protected, and actually he wants to be able to return someday as a prodigal son type figure. Liverpool have to accept this at this point. And I also think that we need to acknowledge the good work that Michael Edwards, that Richard Hughes, that Slot have done so far at the club in getting the club to this position, and why there should be a future of trusting that these guys have a certain level of competency. Not that they just need to re-sign people to contracts and that's the arbitrary. Under Klopp, I think saying that all three of these guys should re-sign may also have been under question, but I think it would have been closer to, yeah, they should re-sign because they're his guys, than it should be now. Slot might have new ideas. For instance, take on whatever's going on with Trent Alexander-Arnold, right? I think that is really interesting, but he's not playing the maximum of where I'd imagine Trent Alexander-Arnold wants to play. Having said that, there is always an assumption that Trent wants to play the role that Klopp gave him, and now that he's being more limited into the slot role, or he's being put as more of a right back, he wants to play out of that and he wants to have a new experience. The new experience may of course be that he plays the exact same right back role for Real Madrid, say a Marcelo type, but down the right hand side. And actually he's very happy to play that wing back type role, which is actually more of a roaming midfielder / Bishop type figure in midfield. The same goes for Virg, right? I think Virg is the least needed for adaptation there. He's a centre-back, he's the captain of the team. You will want to keep some form of consistency, especially with the Dutch connection, which is already there. And then finally, Mo Salah. Let's not forget that towards the end of last season, when things were historically always not going so well for Mo historically did tail off towards the end of a lot of seasons. Even though he's done a lot of fantastic things throughout seasons, there have been historic tail-offs at times and times where we've really needed him. And, we have felt slightly undermined by the overall system under Klopp. Think about what Slot has changed, what he's added to make Mo Salah a better player. And the statistics that everyone's talking about, the reliance that they're trying to paint on Mo Salah, is also something that Slot will have been very conscious of. He's not just going to stand there and go, yep, well, we're going to try and equally spread goals across this front line despite having a very strong player in the team, and also despite having a number of players that can play off that player and having a number of players who can enable that player. We'll just go another route. First of all, maybe he's making a point, which I think a lot of managers make tactically sometimes, where they sort of go, well, what is it that we're actually doing here, guys? Can we get another player in that position? I also think Liverpool are probably actively looking for other backups. Chiesa was a very obvious backup in that position. He was always going to be someone that could have stepped in on the right-hand side. Jota has always been someone who, I think, in fact, he played that role under Klopp when Salah was away for the African Cup of Nations. But the point is, Slot has enabled a player who people were beginning to have the discussion around, is this guy going to tail off? Now, we can't always rely on the fact that other players will come in and have the same motivation, the same application, the same leadership, the same ideas, the same rise, the same relationships, synergy, and everything else with Liverpool. Those kind of things, they're very difficult to create, even though Slot has done very good jobs of creating those with individuals and as a team so far. But what you would say is, Salah, Trent and Verge have all been offered contracts at this point, and none of them, I think, have been particularly happy with them. All of which, I think, are because their expectations are not based on what Liverpool can offer them, but what other people can offer them. Salah, particularly in the media, talking about, hey, I want value for where I actually am performing at the moment. In the overall market, I'm performing as one of the best players in the world. I should be acknowledged as that. Virgil, I'd imagine, is asking for similar, though I'd also know that Virgil probably could go somewhere else, get a great big signing on bonus, all those kind of things, would have to change his lifestyle, would have to change a whole load of things, and would probably also be playing in a brand new system that maybe doesn't play to his strengths in the same way as Liverpool have it. He wouldn't go somewhere else and instantly step in and be a captain. The other offers that he has probably are very positive, but would definitely be a step down from where Liverpool are at right now. He can't go to another Premier League team, essentially. I think it would be an abomination for Liverpool and probably step all over that legacy that I think Verge is very conscious of stepping on. And then on top of that, I also think that someone like Trent Alexander-Arnold, the only reason that he can only really pick Real Madrid at this point is because he can't go to another Premier League team. Liverpool wouldn't want him to go there. That really would step all over his legacy at Liverpool, and he wouldn't want to be playing against Liverpool in this regular type role. He would know what that does to a player. He knows, even Robbie Fowler back in the day was playing against Liverpool. There was some good-hearted joshing, but did anyone really want to see him not playing for us? No, not really. That's the way it goes with Scousers. And this is why I think we're very often overlooking the complexities of all of these situations and clubbing them all into re-sign or don't re-sign, a binary idea of those things. You can see when Mo does interviews like this, and my screen is here, which is why I'm pointing here, how normal these kind of things are, how blasé, how it's become quite a normal thing for these players and is very often a normal thing for these players to go through. Mo, Trent, Verge are all Class A professionals. They've all been doing a great job, particularly Mo and Verge, I think, even though Trent has been fantastic. And I think this is something we really need to be conscious of. There's no need to have a meltdown over quotes like this. I think these are actually very normal quotes during times of renegotiation, and we need to learn to tell these stories better than, it's my last year at the club. Salah speaks about his Liverpool contract in exclusive. It's big, it's very clickable, and it's 1 minute into the interview. It annoyed me a little bit. I'm working with Sky, and I like the guys at Sky, so, I can understand it. I know what their thought process is. It's get clicks. It's get enough people to watch this. It's that, hey, if we get enough people to watch this and they watch to the point where they're meant to get the information, they'll get the real information. Essentially, we kind of have to help spoon feed these people, because if we just give you a real quote, we're not leading the horse to water. The horse that's led to water has to be led to the water to get the water. You wouldn't watch an interview which we don't say something, well, less people will watch an interview where he doesn't say something salacious. They just watch something for enjoyment. We want to watch you watch it anxiously. That's the point. So I'm just saying, I don't think this is all that much of a revelation. I'd expect it throughout January. I'd expect these headlines, especially as Mo and everyone else, of course, are going to talk to other people, because you'd be stupid not to get offers from elsewhere to be able to take that to Liverpool and go, PSG offered this. You at least need to match that. Bayern Munich offered this. You at least need to tell me whether you can do X, Y, Z. The same for Virgin, the same for Trent. Trent, interestingly, could Bellingham the other way. Well, what I mean by that is, if I was any of these guys, I would use other clubs to get a better offer from Liverpool and then stay at Liverpool. Any of the three of them. Maybe minus Trent, but you get my point. Trent could be leading Real Madrid on and he'll be even more of a hero if he's done so. But let's see. Who knows? Might be in a Real Madrid shirt next season. Who knows? Oh man, it's been good to chat to you guys. I will chat to you here in a little while. I appreciate everyone who watches the channel. Calm down. We're going to enter crazy season now, right? And I'm glad you watch. Appreciate it. I'll chat to you in a while. Much love. Bye.